Hello and welcome. Tonight, we step gently into one of the most enchanting fairy tales ever told. There's nothing you need to do right now. Just settle in, breathe a little slower, and let the day drift away. If this space brings you comfort, you're always welcome to stay by liking the video or subscribing, but only if it truly feels right to you. I love knowing where these stories travel, so if you wish, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time the night has reached for you. Now lower the lights, let a soft sound fill the room, and allow yourself to be carried slowly, calmly into tonight's story. The 12 Idle Servants. 12 servants who had done nothing all the day would not exert themselves at night either, but laid themselves on the grass and boasted of their idleness. The first said, "What is your laziness to me? I have to concern myself about mine own. The care of my body is my principal work. I eat not a little and drink still more. When I have had 4 meals, I fast a short time until I feel hunger again, and that suits me best. To rise betimes is not for me. When it is getting near midday, I already seek out a resting place for myself. If the master call, I do exactly as if I had not heard him, and if he call for the second time, I wait a while before I get up and go to him very slowly. In this way, life is endurable." The second said, "I have a horse to look after, but I leave the bit in his mouth, and if I do not want to do it, I give him no food, and I say he has had it already. I, however, lay myself in the oat chest and sleep for 4 hours. After this, I stretch out one foot and move it a couple of times over the horse's body, and then he is combed and cleaned. Who is going to make a great business of that? Nevertheless, service is too toilsome for me." The third said, "Why plague oneself with work? Nothing comes of it. I laid myself in the sun and fell asleep. It began to rain a little, but why should I get up? I let it rain on in God's name. At last came a splashing shower so heavy indeed that it pulled the hair out of my head and washed it away, and I got a hole in the skull. I put a plaster on it, and then it was all right. I have already had several injuries of that kind." The fourth said, "If I am to undertake a piece of work, I first loiter about for an hour, that I may save up my strength. After that I begin quite slowly, and ask if no one is there who could help me. Then I let him do the chief of the work, and in reality only look on. But that also is still too much for me." The fifth said, "What does that matter? Just think I am to take away the manure from the horse's stable and load the cart with it. I let it go on slowly, and if I have taken anything on the fork, I only half raise it up, and then I rest just a quarter of an hour, until I quite throw it in. It is enough, and to spare if I take out a cartful in the day. I have no fancy for killing myself with work." The sixth said, "Shame on ye. I am afraid of no work, but I lie down for 3 weeks and never once take my clothes off. What is the use of buckling your shoes on? For aught I care, they may fall off my feet, it is no matter. If I am going up some steps, I drag one foot slowly after the other on to the first step, and then I count the rest of them, that I may know where I must rest." The seventh said, "That will not do with me. My master looks after my work, only he is not at home the whole day. But I neglect nothing. I run as fast as it is possible to do when one crawls. If I am to get on, 4 sturdy men must push me with all their might. I came where 6 men were lying, sleeping on a bed beside each other. I lay down by them and slept too. There was no wakening me again, and when they wanted to have me home, they had to carry me. The 8th said, I see plainly that I am the only active fellow. If a stone lie before me, I do not give myself the trouble to raise my legs and step over it. I lay myself down on the ground, and if I am wet and covered with mud and dirt, I stay lying until the sun has dried me again. At the very most, I only turn myself so that it can shine on me. The 9th said, that is the right way. Today the bread was before me, but I was too idle to take it and nearly died of hunger. Moreover, a jug stood by it, but it was so big and heavy that I did not like to lift it up and preferred bearing thirst. Just to turn myself round was too much for me. I remained lying like a log the whole day. The 10th said, laziness has brought misfortune on me, a broken leg and swollen calf. 3 of us were lying in the road, and I had my legs stretched out. Someone came with a cart, and the wheels went over me. I might indeed have drawn my legs back, but I did not hear the cart coming, for the midges were humming about my ears and creeping in at my nose and out again at my mouth. Who can take the trouble to drive the vermin away? The 11th said, I gave up my place yesterday. I had no fancy for carrying the heavy books to my master any longer, or fetching them away again. There was no end of it all day long. But to tell the truth, he gave me my dismissal, and would not keep me any longer, for his clothes which I had left lying in the dust were all moth-eaten, and I am very glad of it. The 12th said, today I had to drive the cart into the country, and made myself a bed of straw on it, and had a good sleep. The reins slipped out of my hand, and when I awoke, the horse had nearly torn itself loose. The harness was gone. The strap which fastened the horse to the shafts was gone, and so were the collar, the bridle, and bit. Someone had come by who had carried all off. Besides this, the cart had got into a quagmire and stuck fast. I left it standing and stretched myself on the straw again. At last, the master came himself and pushed the cart out, and if he had not come, I should not be lying here, but there and sleeping in full tranquility. Stories about snakes. There was once a little child whose mother gave her every afternoon a small bowl of milk and bread, and the child seated herself in the yard with it. When she began to eat, however, a snake came creeping out of a crevice in the wall, dipped its little head in the dish, and ate with her. The child had pleasure in this, and when she was sitting there with her little dish, and the snake did not come at once, she cried, Snake, snake, come swiftly. Hither, come thou tiny thing, thou shalt have thy crumbs of bread, thou shalt refresh thyself with milk. Then the snake came in haste and enjoyed its food. Moreover, it showed gratitude, for it brought the child all kinds of pretty things, from its hidden treasures, bright stones, pearls, and golden playthings. The snake, however, only drank the milk and left the breadcrumbs alone. Then, one day, the child took its little spoon and struck the snake gently on its head with it, and said, Eat the breadcrumbs, as well, little thing. The mother, who was standing in the kitchen, heard the child talking to someone, and when she saw that she was striking a snake with her spoon, ran out with a log of wood and killed the good little creature. From that time forth, a change came over the child. As long as the snake had eaten with her, she had grown tall and strong, but now she lost her pretty rosy cheeks and wasted away. It was not long before the funeral bird began to cry in the night, and the redbreast to collect little branches and leaves for a funeral garland, and soon afterwards the child lay on her bier. Second story. An orphan child was sitting on the town wall spinning when she saw a snake coming out of a hole low down in the wall. Swiftly, she spread out beside this one of the blue silk handkerchiefs which snakes have such a strong liking for, and which are the only things they will creep on. As soon as the snake saw it, it went back, then returned, bringing with it a small golden crown, laid it on the handkerchief, and then went away again. The girl took up the crown. It glittered and was of delicate golden filigree work. It was not long before the snake came back for the second time, but when it no longer saw the crown, it crept up to the wall, and in its grief smote its little head against it as long as it had strength to do so, until at last it lay there dead. If the girl had but left the crown where it was, the snake would certainly have brought still more of its treasures out of the hole. Third story. A snake cries, "Hoo hoo, hoo hoo." A child says, "Come out." The snake comes out. Then the child inquires about her little sister. "Hast thou not seen little red stockings?" The snake says, "No, neither have I." "Then I am like you. Hoo hoo, hoo hoo, hoo hoo." The Nix of the Mill-Pond. There was once upon a time a miller who lived with his wife in great contentment. They had money and land, and their prosperity increased year by year more and more. But ill luck comes like a thief in the night. As their wealth had increased, so did it again, decrease year by year. And at last the miller could hardly call the mill in which he lived his own. He was in great distress, and when he lay down after his day's work, found no rest, but tossed about in his bed, full of care. One morning he rose before daybreak and went out into the open air, thinking that perhaps there his heart might become lighter. As he was stepping over the mill dam, the first sunbeam was just breaking forth, and he heard a rippling sound in the pond. He turned round and perceived a beautiful woman rising slowly out of the water. Her long hair, which she was holding off her shoulders with her soft hands, fell down on both sides and covered her white body. He soon saw that she was the Nix of the Mill-Pond, and in his fright did not know whether he should run away or stay where he was. But the Nix made her sweet voice heard, called him by his name, and asked him why he was so sad. The miller was at first struck dumb, but when he heard her speak so kindly, he took heart and told her how he had formerly lived in wealth and happiness, but that now he was so poor that he did not know what to do. "Be easy," answered the Nix. "I will make thee richer and happier than thou hast ever been before. Only thou must promise to give me the young thing which has just been born in thy house." "What else can that be?" thought the miller, "but a young puppy or kitten?" And he promised her what she desired. The Nix descended into the water again, and he hurried back to his mill, consoled and in good spirits. He had not yet reached it when the maidservant came out of the house and cried to him to rejoice, for his wife had given birth to a little boy. The miller stood as if struck by lightning. He saw very well that the cunning Nix had been aware of it and had cheated him. Hanging his head, he went up to his wife's bedside, and when she said, "Why dost thou not rejoice over the fine boy?" he told her what had befallen him and what kind of a promise he had given to the Nix. "Of what use to me are riches and prosperity," he added, "if I am to lose my child? But what can I do?" Even the relations who had come thither to wish them joy did not know what to say. In the meantime, prosperity again returned to the miller's house. All that he undertook succeeded, it was as if presses and coffers filled themselves of their own accord, and as if money multiplied nightly in the cupboards. It was not long before his wealth was greater than it had ever been before, but he could not rejoice over it untroubled, for the bargain which he had made with the Nix tormented his soul. Whenever he passed the mill pond, he feared she might ascend and remind him of his debt. He never let the boy himself go near the water. "Beware," he said to him, "if thou dost but touch the water, a hand will rise, seize thee, and draw thee down." But as year after year went by and the Nix did not show herself again, the miller began to feel at ease. The boy grew up to be a youth and was apprenticed to a huntsman. When he had learnt everything and had become an excellent huntsman, the lord of the village took him into his service. In the village lived a beautiful and true-hearted maiden who pleased the huntsman. And when his master perceived that he gave him a little house, the two were married, lived peacefully and happily, and loved each other with all their hearts. One day, the huntsman was chasing a roe, and when the animal turned aside from the forest into the open country, he pursued it and at last shot it. He did not notice that he was now in the neighborhood of the dangerous mill pond, and went after he had disemboweled the stag to the water, in order to wash his blood-stained hands. Scarcely, however, had he dipped them in, than the Nix ascended smilingly, wound her dripping arms around him, and drew him quickly down under the waves which closed over him. When it was evening, and the huntsman did not return home, his wife became alarmed. She went out to seek him, and as he had often told her that he had to be on his guard against the snares of the Nix, and dared not venture into the neighborhood of the mill pond, she already suspected what had happened. She hastened to the water, and when she found his hunting pouch lying on the shore, she could no longer have any doubt of the misfortune. Lamenting her sorrow and wringing her hands, she called on her beloved by name, but in vain. She hurried across to the other side of the pond and called him anew. She reviled the Nix with harsh words, but no answer followed. The surface of the water remained calm. Only the crescent moon stared steadily back at her. The poor woman did not leave the pond. With hasty steps, she paced round and round it without resting a moment, sometimes in silence, sometimes uttering a loud cry, sometimes softly sobbing. At last, her strength came to an end. She sank down to the ground and fell into a heavy sleep. Presently, a dream took possession of her. She was anxiously climbing upwards between great masses of rock. Thorns and briars caught her feet, the rain beat in her face, and the wind tossed her long hair about. When she had reached the summit, quite a different sight presented itself to her. The sky was blue, the air soft, the ground sloped gently downwards, and on a green meadow, gay with flowers of every color, stood a pretty cottage. She went up to it and opened the door. There sat an old woman with white hair who beckoned to her kindly. At that very moment, the poor woman awoke. Day had already dawned, and she at once resolved to act in accordance with her dream. She laboriously climbed the mountain. Everything was exactly as she had seen it in the night. The old woman received her kindly and pointed out a chair on which she might sit. "Thou must have met with a misfortune," she said, "since thou hast sought out my lonely cottage." With tears, the woman related what had befallen her. "Be comforted," said the old woman. "I will help thee. Here is a golden comb for thee." Tarry till the full moon has risen, then go to the mill-pond, seat thyself on the shore, and comb thy long black hair with this comb. When thou hast done, lay it down on the bank, and thou wilt see what will happen." The woman returned home, but the time till the full moon came passed slowly. At last the shining disk appeared in the heavens. Then she went out to the mill-pond, sat down, and combed her long black hair with the golden comb. And when she had finished, she laid it down at the water's edge. It was not long before there was a movement in the depths. A wave rolled to the shore, and bore the comb away with it. In not more than the time necessary for the comb to sink to the bottom, the surface of the water parted, and the head of the huntsman arose. He did not speak, but looked at his wife with sorrowful glances. At the same instant, a second wave came rushing up and covered the man's head. All had vanished. The mill-pond lay peaceful as before, and nothing but the face of the full moon shone on it. Full of sorrow, the woman went back, but again the dream showed her the cottage of the old woman. Next morning she again set out and complained of her woes to the wise woman. The old woman gave her a golden flute and said, "Tarry till the full moon comes again, then take this flute, play a beautiful air on it, and when thou hast finished, lay it on the sand. Then thou wilt see what will happen." The wife did as the old woman told her. No sooner was the flute lying on the sand than there was a stirring in the depths, and a wave rushed up and bore the flute away with it. Immediately afterwards, the water parted, and not only the head of the man, but half of his body also arose. He stretched out his arms longingly towards her, but a second wave came up, covered him, and drew him down again. "Alas, what does it profit me," said the unhappy woman, "that I should see my beloved only to lose him again?" Despair filled her heart anew, but the dream led her a third time to the house of the old woman. She set out, and the wise woman gave her a golden spinning wheel, consoled her, and said, "All is not yet fulfilled. Tarry until the time of the full moon. Then take the spinning wheel, seat thyself on the shore, and spin the spool full. And when thou hast done that, place the spinning wheel near the water, and thou wilt see what will happen." The woman obeyed all she said exactly. As soon as the full moon showed itself, she carried the golden spinning wheel to the shore and span industriously until the flax came to an end and the spool was quite filled with the threads. No sooner was the wheel standing on the shore than there was a more violent movement than before in the depths of the pond, and a mighty wave rushed up and bore the wheel away with it. Immediately the head and the whole body of the man rose into the air in a waterspout. He quickly sprang to the shore, caught his wife by the hand, and fled. But they had scarcely gone a very little distance when the whole pond rose with a frightful roar and streamed out over the open country. The fugitives already saw death before their eyes when the woman in her terror implored the help of the old woman, and in an instant they were transformed, she into a toad, he into a frog. The flood which had overtaken them could not destroy them, but it tore them apart and carried them far away. When the water had dispersed and they both touched dry land again, they regained their human form, but neither knew where the other was. They found themselves among strange people who did not know their native land. High mountains and deep valleys lay between them. In order to keep themselves alive, they were both obliged to tend sheep. For many long years they drove their flocks through field and forest and were full of sorrow and longing. When spring had once more broken forth on the earth, they both went out one day with their flocks, and as chance would have it, they drew near each other. They met in a valley but did not recognize each other, yet they rejoiced that they were no longer so lonely. Henceforth, they each day drove their flocks to the same place. They did not speak much, but they felt comforted. One evening, when the full moon was shining in the sky and the sheep were already at rest, the shepherd pulled the flute out of his pocket and played on it a beautiful but sorrowful air. When he had finished, he saw that the shepherdess was weeping bitterly. "Why art thou weeping?" he asked. "Alas," answered she, "thus shone the full moon when I played this air on the flute for the last time, and the head of my beloved rose out of the water." He looked at her, and it seemed as if a veil fell from his eyes, and he recognized his dear wife. And when she looked at him, and the moon shone in his face, she knew him also. They embraced and kissed each other, and no one need ask if they were happy. Old Sultan. A farmer once had a faithful dog called Sultan, who had grown old and lost all his teeth, so that he could no longer hold anything fast. One day, the farmer was standing with his wife before the house door and said, "Tomorrow, I intend to shoot old Sultan. He is no longer of any use." His wife, who felt pity for the faithful beast, answered, "He has served us so long and been so faithful that we might well give him his keep." "Eh, what?" said the man. "You are not very sharp. He has not a tooth left in his mouth, and not a thief is afraid of him. Now he may be off. If he has served us, he has had good feeding for it." The poor dog, who was lying stretched out in the sun not far off, had heard everything and was sorry that the morrow was to be his last day. He had a good friend, the wolf, and he crept out in the evening into the forest to him and complained of the fate that awaited him. "Hark ye, gossip," said the wolf, "be of good cheer. I will help you out of your trouble. I have thought of something. Tomorrow, early in the morning, your master is going with his wife to make hay, and they will take their little child with them, for no one will be left behind in the house. They are wont, during a work time, to lay the child under the hedge in the shade. You lay yourself there too, just as if you wished to guard it. Then I will come out of the wood and carry off the child. You must rush swiftly after me, as if you would seize it again from me. I will let it fall, and you will take it back to its parents, who will think that you have saved it and will be far too grateful to do you any harm. On the contrary, you will be in high favor, and they will never let you want for anything again." The plan pleased the dog, and it was carried out just as it was arranged. The father screamed when he saw the wolf running across the field with his child, but when old Sultan brought it back, then he was full of joy and stroked him and said, "Not a hair of yours shall be hurt. You shall eat my bread free as long as you live." And to his wife he said, "Go home at once and make old Sultan some bread sop, that he will not have to bite and bring the pillow out of my bed. I will give him that to lie upon." Henceforth, old Sultan was as well off as he could wish to be. Soon afterwards, the wolf visited him and was pleased that everything had succeeded so well. "But gossip," said he, "you will just wink an eye if when I have a chance I carry off one of your master's fat sheep." "Do not reckon upon that," answered the dog. "I will remain true to my master. I cannot agree to that." The wolf, who thought that this could not be spoken in earnest, came creeping about in the night and was going to take away the sheep. But the farmer, to whom the faithful sultan had told the wolf's plan, caught him and dressed his hide soundly with the flail. The wolf had to pack off, but he cried out to the dog, "Wait a bit, you scoundrel, you shall pay for this." The next morning, the wolf sent the boar to challenge the dog to come out into the forest so that they might settle the affair. Old Sultan could find no one to stand by him but a cat with only 3 legs, and as they went out together, the poor cat limped along and at the same time stretched out her tail into the air with pain. The wolf and his friend were already on the spot appointed, but when they saw their enemy coming, they thought that he was bringing a saber with him, for they mistook the outstretched tail of the cat for one, and when the poor beast hopped on its 3 legs, they could only think every time that it was picking up a stone to throw at them. So they were both afraid. The wild boar crept into the underwood, and the wolf jumped up a tree. The dog and the cat, when they came up, wondered that there was no one to be seen. The wild boar, however, had not been able to hide himself altogether, and one of his ears was still to be seen. Whilst the cat was looking carefully about, the boar moved his ear. The cat, who thought it was a mouse moving there, jumped upon it and bit it hard. The boar made a fearful noise and ran away, crying out, "The guilty one is up in the tree." The dog and cat looked up and saw the wolf, who was ashamed of having shown himself so timid, and made friends with the dog. The Turnip. There were once 2 brothers who both served as soldiers. One of them was rich and the other poor. Then the poor one, to escape from his poverty, put off his soldier's coat and turned farmer. He dug and hoed his bit of land and sowed it with turnip seed. The seed came up, and one turnip grew there, which became large and vigorous, and visibly grew bigger and bigger, and seemed as if it would never stop growing, so that it might have been called the Princess of Turnips, for never was such an one seen before, and never will such an one be seen again. At length it was so enormous that by itself it filled a whole cart, and 2 oxen were required to draw it, and the farmer had not the least idea what he was to do with the turnip, or whether it would be a fortune to him or a misfortune. At last he thought, "If thou sellest it, what wilt thou get for it that is of any importance? And if thou eatest it thyself, why, the small turnips would do thee just as much good. It would be better to take it to the king and make him a present of it." So he placed it on a cart, harnessed 2 oxen, took it to the palace, and presented it to the king. "What strange thing is this?" said the king. "Many wonderful things have come before my eyes, but never such a monster as this. From what seed can this have sprung, or are you a luck child and have met with it by chance?" "Ah, no," said the farmer, "no luck child am I. I am a poor soldier who, because he could no longer support himself, hung his soldier's coat on a nail and took to farming land. I have a brother who is rich and well known to you, Lord King, but I, because I have nothing, am forgotten by everyone." Then the king felt compassion for him and said, "Thou shalt be raised from thy poverty, and shalt have such gifts from me that thou shalt be equal to thy rich brother." Then he bestowed on him much gold and lands and meadows and herds, and made him immensely rich, so that the wealth of the other brother could not be compared with his. When the rich brother heard what the poor one had gained for himself with one single turnip, he envied him and thought in every way how he also could get hold of a similar piece of luck. He would, however, set about it in a much wiser way, and took gold and horses and carried them to the king, and made certain the king would give him a much larger present in return. If his brother had got so much for one turnip, what would he not carry away with him in return for such beautiful things as these? The king accepted his present and said he had nothing to give him in return that was more rare and excellent than the great turnip. So the rich man was obliged to put his brother's turnip in a cart and have it taken to his home. When there, he did not know on whom to vent his rage and anger, until bad thoughts came to him and he resolved to kill his brother. He hired murderers who were to lie in ambush, and then he went to his brother and said, "Dear brother, I know of a hidden treasure. We will dig it up together and divide it between us." The other agreed to this and accompanied him without suspicion. While they were on their way, however, the murderers fell on him, bound him, and would have hanged him to a tree. But just as they were doing this, loud singing and the sound of a horse's feet were heard in the distance. On this, their hearts were filled with terror, and they pushed their prisoner head first into the sack, hung it on a branch, and took to flight. He, however, worked up there until he had made a hole in the sack through which he could put his head. The man who was coming by was no other than a traveling student, a young fellow who rode on his way through the wood, joyously singing his song. When he who was aloft saw that someone was passing below him, he cried, "Good day, you have come at a lucky time." The student looked round on every side, but did not know whence the voice came. At last he said, "Who calls me?" Then an answer came from the top of the tree, "Raise your eyes. Here I sit aloft in the sack of wisdom. In a short time have I learnt great things. Compared with this, all schools are a jest. In a very short time I shall have learnt everything, and shall descend wiser than all other men. I understand the stars and the signs of the zodiac, and the tracks of the winds, the sand of the sea, the healing of illness, and the virtues of all herbs, birds, and stones. If you were once within it, you would feel what noble things issue forth from the sack of knowledge." The student, when he heard all this, was astonished and said, "Blessed be the hour in which I have found thee. May not I also enter the sack for a while?" He who was above replied, as if unwillingly, "For a short time I will let you get into it if you reward me and give me good words. But you must wait an hour longer, for one thing remains which I must learn before I do it." When the student had waited a while, he became impatient and begged to be allowed to get in at once. His thirst for knowledge was so very great. So he who was above pretended at last to yield, and said, "In order that I may come forth from the house of knowledge, you must let it down by the rope, and then you shall enter it." So the student let the sack down, untied it, and set him free, and then cried, "Now draw me up at once," and was about to get into the sack. "Halt," said the other, "that won't do," and took him by the head and put him upside down into the sack, fastened it, and drew the disciple of wisdom up the tree by the rope. Then he swung him in the air and said, "How goes it with thee, my dear fellow? Behold, already thou feelest wisdom coming, and art gaining valuable experience. Keep perfectly quiet until thou becomest wiser." Thereupon he mounted the student's horse and rode away, but in an hour's time sent someone to let the student out again. Old Rinkrank. There was once on a time a king who had a daughter, and he caused a glass mountain to be made, and said that whosoever could cross to the other side of it without falling should have his daughter to wife. Then there was one who loved the king's daughter, and he asked the king if he might have her. "Yes," said the king, "if you can cross the mountain without falling, you shall have her." And the princess said she would go over it with him and would hold him if he were about to fall. So they set out together to go over it. And when they were halfway up, the princess slipped and fell, and the glass mountain opened and shut her up inside it. And her betrothed could not see where she had gone, for the mountain closed immediately. Then he wept and lamented much, and the king was miserable too, and had the mountain broken open where she had been lost, and though they would be able to get her out again, but they could not find the place into which she had fallen. Meanwhile, the king's daughter had fallen quite deep down into the earth, into a great cave. An old fellow with a very long gray beard came to meet her and told her that if she would be his servant and do everything he bade her, she might live. If not, he would kill her. So she did all he bade her. In the mornings, he took his ladder out of his pocket and set it up against the mountain and climbed to the top by its help, and then he drew up the ladder after him. The princess had to cook his dinner, make his bed, and do all his work. And when he came home again, he always brought with him a heap of gold and silver. When she had lived with him for many years and had grown quite old, he called her Mother Mansrot, and she had to call him Old Rinkrank. Then once when he was out and she had made his bed and washed his dishes, she shut the doors and windows all fast, and there was one little window through which the light shone in, and this she left open. When old Rinkrank came home, he knocked at his door and cried, "Mother Mansrot, open the door for me." "No," said she, "Old Rinkrank, I will not open the door for thee." Then he said, "Here stand I, poor Rinkrank, on my 17 long shanks, on my weary, worn-out foot, wash my dishes, Mother Mansrot." "I have washed thy dishes already," said she. Then again he said, "Here stand I, poor Rinkrank, on my 17 long shanks, on my weary, worn-out foot, make me my bed, Mother Mansrot." "I have made thy bed already," said she. Then again he said, "Here stand I, poor Rinkrank, on my 17 long shanks, on my weary, worn-out foot, open the door, Mother Mansrot." Then he ran all round his house and saw that the little window was open, and thought, "I will look in and see what she can be about, and why she will not open the door for me." He tried to peep in, but could not get his head through because of his long beard. So he first put his beard through the open window, but just as he had got it through, Mother Mansrot came by and pulled the window down with a cord which she had tied to it, and his beard was shut fast in it. Then he began to cry most piteously, for it hurt him very much, and to entreat her to release him again. But she said not, until he gave her the ladder with which he ascended the mountain. Then, whether he would or not, he had to tell her where the ladder was. And she fastened a very long ribbon to the window, and then she set up the ladder and ascended the mountain, and when she was at the top of it, she opened the window. She went to her father and told him all that had happened to her. The king rejoiced greatly, and her betrothed was still there, and they went and dug up the mountain and found old Rinkrank inside it with all his gold and silver. Then the king had old Rinkrank put to death and took all his gold and silver. The princess married her betrothed and lived right happily in great magnificence and joy. Dr. Know-All. There was once on a time a poor peasant called Crab, who drove with 2 oxen a load of wood to the town and sold it to a doctor for 2 thalers. When the money was being counted out to him, it so happened that the doctor was sitting at table, and when the peasant saw how daintily he ate and drank, his heart desired what he saw, and he would willingly have been a doctor too. So he remained standing a while, and at length inquired if he too could not be a doctor. "Oh yes," said the doctor, "that is soon managed." "What must I do?" asked the peasant. "In the first place, buy thyself an ABC book of the kind which has a cock on the frontispiece. In the second turn, thy cart and thy 2 oxen into money, and get thyself some clothes and whatsoever else pertains to medicine. Thirdly, have a sign painted for thyself with the words, 'I am Dr. Know-All,' and have that nailed up above thy house door." The peasant did everything that he had been told to do. When he had doctored people a while, but not long, a rich and great lord had some money stolen. Then he was told about Dr. Know-All, who lived in such and such a village, and must know what had become of the money. So the lord had the horses put in his carriage, drove out to the village, and asked Crab if he were Dr. Know-All. Yes, he was, he said. Then he was to go with him and bring back the stolen money. "Oh yes, but Greta, my wife, must go too." The lord was willing, and let both of them have a seat in the carriage, and they all drove away together. When they came to the nobleman's castle, the table was spread, and Crab was told to sit down and eat. "Yes, but my wife Greta too," said he, and he seated himself with her at the table. And when the first servant came with a dish of delicate fare, the peasant nudged his wife and said, "Greta, that was the first," meaning that was the servant who brought the first dish. The servant, however, thought he intended by that to say, "That is the first thief." And as he actually was so, he was terrified, and said to his comrade outside, "The doctor knows all we shall fare ill. He said I was the first." The second did not want to go in at all, but was forced. So when he went in with his dish, the peasant nudged his wife and said, "Greta, that is the second." This servant was just as much alarmed, and he got out. The third did not fare better, for the peasant again said, "Greta, that is the third." The fourth had to carry in a dish that was covered, and the lord told the doctor that he was to show his skill, and guess what was beneath the cover? The doctor looked at the dish, had no idea what to say, and cried, "Ah, poor Crab." When the lord heard that, he cried, "There, he knows it. He knows who has the money." On this, the servants looked terribly uneasy, and made a sign to the doctor that they wished him to step outside for a moment. When therefore he went out, all 4 of them confessed to him that they had stolen the money, and said that they would willingly restore it, and give him a heavy sum into the bargain if he would not denounce them, for if he did, they would be hanged. They led him to the spot where the money was concealed. With this, the doctor was satisfied, and returned to the hall, sat down to the table, and said, "My lord, now will I search in my book where the gold is hidden." The 5th servant, however, crept into the stove to hear if the doctor knew still more. The doctor, however, sat still, and opened his ABC book, turned the pages backwards and forwards, and looked for the cock. As he could not find it immediately, he said, "I know you are there, so you had better show yourself." Then the fellow in the stove thought that the doctor meant him, and full of terror sprang out, crying, "That man knows everything." Then Dr. Know-All showed the count where the money was, but did not say who had stolen it, and received from both sides much money in reward, and became a renowned man. Bearskin. There was once a young fellow who enlisted as a soldier, conducted himself bravely, and was always the foremost when it rained bullets. So long as the war lasted, all went well. But when peace was made, he received his dismissal, and the captain said he might go where he liked. His parents were dead, and he had no longer a home, so he went to his brothers and begged them to take him in and keep him until war broke out again. The brothers, however, were hard-hearted and said, "What can we do with thee? Thou art of no use to us. Go and make a living for thyself." The soldier had nothing left but his gun. He took that on his shoulder and went forth into the world. He came to a wide heath on which nothing was to be seen but a circle of trees. Under these he sat sorrowfully down and began to think over his fate. "I have no money," thought he. "I have learnt no trade but that of fighting, and now that they have made peace, they don't want me any longer. So I see beforehand that I shall have to starve." All at once he heard a rustling, and when he looked round, a strange man stood before him who wore a green coat and looked right stately, but had a hideous cloven foot. "I know already what thou art in need of," said the man. "Gold and possessions shalt thou have, as much as thou canst make away with. Do what thou wilt. But first I must know if thou art fearless, that I may not bestow my money in vain." "A soldier and fear? How can those two things go together?" he answered. "Thou canst put me to the proof." "Very well then," answered the man. "Look behind thee." The soldier turned round and saw a large bear which came growling towards him. "Oh ho!" cried the soldier, "I will tickle thy nose for thee, so that thou shalt soon lose thy fancy for growling." And he aimed at the bear and shot it through the muzzle. It fell down and never stirred again. "I see quite well," said the stranger, "that thou art not wanting in courage, but there is still another condition which thou wilt have to fulfill." "If it does not endanger my salvation," replied the soldier, who knew very well who was standing by him. "If it does, I'll have nothing to do with it." "Thou wilt look to that for thyself," answered Greencoat. "Thou shalt for the next 7 years neither wash thyself, nor comb thy beard, nor thy hair, nor cut thy nails, nor say one paternoster. I will give thee a coat and a cloak which during this time thou must wear. If thou diest during the 7 years, thou art mine. If thou remainest alive, thou art free and rich to boot for all the rest of thy life." The soldier thought of the great extremity in which he now found himself, and as he so often had gone to meet death, he resolved to risk it now also, and agreed to the terms. The devil took off his green coat, gave it to the soldier, and said, "If thou hast this coat on thy back, and puttest thy hand into the pocket, thou wilt always find it full of money." Then he pulled the skin off the bear and said, "This shall be thy cloak and thy bed also, for thereon shalt thou sleep, and in no other bed shalt thou lie, and because of this apparel shalt thou be called Bearskin." After this, the devil vanished. The soldier put the coat on, felt at once in the pocket, and found that the thing was really true. Then he put on the bearskin and went forth into the world, and enjoyed himself, refraining from nothing that did him good and his money harm. During the first year, his appearance was passable, but during the second, he began to look like a monster. His hair covered nearly the whole of his face. His beard was like a piece of coarse felt. His fingers had claws, and his face was so covered with dirt that if cress had been sown on it, it would have come up. Whosoever saw him ran away. But as he everywhere gave the poor money to pray that he might not die during the 7 years, and as he paid well for everything, he still always found shelter. In the 4th year, he entered an inn where the landlord would not receive him and would not even let him have a place in the stable, because he was afraid the horses would be scared. But as Bearskin thrust his hand into his pocket and pulled out a handful of ducats, the host let himself be persuaded and gave him a room in an outhouse. Bearskin was, however, obliged to promise not to let himself be seen, lest the inn should get a bad name. As Bearskin was sitting alone at evening and wishing from the bottom of his heart that the 7 years were over, he heard a loud lamenting in a neighboring room. He had a compassionate heart, so he opened the door and saw an old man weeping bitterly and wringing his hands. Bearskin went nearer, but the man sprang to his feet and tried to escape from him. At last, when the man perceived that Bearskin's voice was human, he let himself be prevailed on, and by kind words, Bearskin succeeded so far that the old man revealed the cause of his grief. His property had dwindled away by degrees. He and his daughters would have to starve, and he was so poor that he could not pay the innkeeper and was to be put in prison. "If that is your only trouble," said Bearskin, "I have plenty of money." He caused the innkeeper to be brought thither, paid him, and put a purse full of gold into the poor old man's pocket besides. When the old man saw himself set free from all his troubles, he did not know how to be grateful enough. "Come with me," said he to Bearskin. "My daughters are all miracles of beauty. Choose one of them for thyself as a wife. When she hears what thou hast done for me, she will not refuse thee. Thou dost in truth look a little strange, but she will soon put thee to rights again." This pleased Bearskin well, and he went. When the eldest saw him, she was so terribly alarmed at his face that she screamed and ran away. The second stood still and looked at him from head to foot. But then she said, "How can I accept a husband who no longer has a human form? The shaven bear that once was here and passed itself off for a man pleased me far better, for at any rate it wore a hussar's dress and white gloves. If it were nothing but ugliness, I might get used to that." The youngest, however, said, "Dear father, that must be a good man to have helped you out of your trouble. So if you have promised him a bride for doing it, your promise must be kept." It was a pity that Bearskin's face was covered with dirt and with hair, for if not, they might have seen how delighted he was when he heard these words. He took a ring from his finger, broke it in two, and gave her one half. The other he kept for himself. He wrote his name, however, on her half and hers on his, and begged her to keep her peace carefully. And then he took his leave and said, "I must still wander about for 3 years, and if I do not return, then thou art free, for I shall be dead. But pray to God to preserve my life." The poor betrothed bride dressed herself entirely in black, and when she thought of her future bridegroom, tears came into her eyes. Nothing but contempt and mockery fell to her lot from her sisters. "Take care," said the eldest. "If thou givest him thy hand, he will strike his claws into it." "Beware," said the second. "Bears like sweet things, and if he takes a fancy to thee, he will eat thee up." "Thou must always do as he likes," began the elder again, "or else he will growl." And the second continued, "But the wedding will be a merry one, for bears dance well." The bride was silent and did not let them vex her. Bearskin, however, traveled about the world from one place to another, did good where he was able, and gave generously to the poor that they might pray for him. At length, as the last day of the 7 years dawned, he went once more out onto the heath and seated himself beneath the circle of trees. It was not long before the wind whistled, and the devil stood before him and looked angrily at him. Then he threw Bearskin his old coat and asked for his own green one back. "We have not got so far as that yet," answered Bearskin. "Thou must first make me clean." Whether the devil liked it or not, he was forced to fetch water and wash Bearskin, comb his hair, and cut his nails. After this, he looked like a brave soldier and was much handsomer than he had ever been before. When the devil had gone away, Bearskin was quite light-hearted. He went into the town, put on a magnificent velvet coat, seated himself in a carriage drawn by 4 white horses, and drove to his bride's house. No one recognized him. The father took him for a distinguished general and led him into the room where his daughters were sitting. He was forced to place himself between the 2 eldest. They helped him to wine, gave him the best pieces of meat, and thought that in all the world they had never seen a handsomer man. The bride, however, sat opposite to him in her black dress and never raised her eyes nor spoke a word. When at length he asked the father if he would give him one of his daughters to wife, the 2 eldest jumped up, ran into their bedrooms to put on splendid dresses, for each of them fancied she was the chosen one. The stranger, as soon as he was alone with his bride, brought out his half of the ring and threw it in a glass of wine, which he reached across the table to her. She took the wine, but when she had drunk it and found the half-ring lying at the bottom, her heart began to beat. She got the other half, which she wore on a ribbon round her neck, joined them, and saw that the 2 pieces fitted exactly together. Then said he, "I am thy betrothed bridegroom, whom thou sawest as Bearskin, but through God's grace I have again received my human form, and have once more become clean." He went up to her, embraced her, and gave her a kiss. In the meantime, the 2 sisters came back in full dress, and when they saw that the handsome man had fallen to the share of the youngest, and heard that he was Bearskin, they ran out full of anger and rage. One of them drowned herself in the well, the other hanged herself on a tree. In the evening, someone knocked at the door, and when the bridegroom opened it, it was the devil in his green coat, who said, "Seest thou, I have now got 2 souls in the place of thy one." The shepherd boy. There was once on a time a shepherd boy whose fame spread far and wide because of the wise answers which he gave to every question. The king of the country heard of it likewise, but did not believe it, and sent for the boy. Then he said to him, "If thou canst give me an answer to 3 questions which I will ask thee, I will look on thee as my own child, and thou shalt dwell with me in my royal palace." The boy said, "What are the 3 questions?" The king said, "The first is, how many drops of water are there in the ocean?" The shepherd boy answered, "Lord King, if you will have all the rivers on earth dammed up so that not a single drop runs from them into the sea, until I have counted it, I will tell you how many drops there are in the sea." The king said, "The next question is, how many stars are there in the sky?" The shepherd boy said, "Give me a great sheet of white paper." And then he made so many fine points on it with a pen that they could scarcely be seen, and it was all but impossible to count them. Anyone who looked at them would have lost his sight. Then he said, There are as many stars in the sky as there are points on the paper. Just count them." But no one was able to do it. The king said, "The third question is how many seconds of time are there in eternity?" Then said the shepherd boy, "In Lower Pomerania is the Diamond Mountain, which is 2.5 miles high, 2.5 miles wide, and 2.5 miles in depth. Every 100 years, a little bird comes and sharpens its beak on it, and when the whole mountain is worn away by this, then the first second of eternity will be over." The king said, "Thou hast answered the 3 questions like a wise man, and shalt henceforth dwell with me in my royal palace, and I will regard thee as my own child." The Gnome. There was once upon a time a rich king who had 3 daughters, who daily went to walk in the palace garden, and the king was a great lover of all kinds of fine trees. But there was one for which he had such an affection that if anyone gathered an apple from it, he wished him 100 fathoms underground. And when harvest time came, the apples on this tree were all as red as blood. The 3 daughters went every day beneath the tree and looked to see if the wind had not blown down an apple, but they never by any chance found one, and the tree was so loaded with them that it was almost breaking, and the branches hung down to the ground. Then the king's youngest child had a great desire for an apple, and said to her sisters, "Our father loves us far too much to wish us underground. It is my belief that he would only do that to people who were strangers." And while she was speaking, the child plucked off quite a large apple and ran to her sister, saying, "Just taste, my dear little sisters, for never in my life have I tasted anything so delightful." Then the 2 other sisters also ate some of the apple, whereupon all 3 sank deep down into the earth where they could hear no cock crow. When midday came, the king wished to call them to come to dinner, but they were nowhere to be found. He sought them everywhere in the palace and garden, but could not find them. Then he was much troubled, and made known to the whole land that whosoever brought his daughters back again should have one of them to wife. Hereupon so many young men went about the country in search that there was no counting them, for everyone loved the 3 children because they were so kind to all and so fair of face. 3 young huntsmen also went out, and when they had traveled about for 8 days, they arrived at a great castle in which were beautiful apartments, and in one room a table was laid, on which were delicate dishes, which were still so warm that they were smoking. But in the whole of the castle, no human being was either to be seen or heard. They waited there for half a day, and the food still remained warm and smoking, and at length they were so hungry that they sat down and ate and agreed with each other that they would stay and live in that castle, and that one of them, who should be chosen by casting lots, should remain in the house, and the 2 others seek the king's daughters. They cast lots, and the lot fell on the eldest. So next day the 2 younger went out to seek, and the eldest had to stay home. At midday came a small mannikin and begged for a piece of bread. Then the huntsman took the bread which he had found there and cut a round off the loaf, and was about to give it to him. But whilst he was giving it to the mannikin, the latter let it fall, and asked the huntsman to be so good as to give him that piece again. The huntsman was about to do so, and stooped, on which the mannikin took a stick, seized him by the hair, and gave him a good beating. Next day the second stayed at home, and he fared no better. When the 2 others returned in the evening, the eldest said, "Well, how have you got on?" "Oh, very badly," said he, and then they lamented their misfortune together. But they said nothing about it to the youngest, for they did not like him at all, and always called him Stupid Hans, because he did not exactly belong to the forest. On the third day, the youngest stayed at home, and again the little mannikin came and begged for a piece of bread. When the youth gave it to him, the elf let it fall as before, and asked him to be so good as to give him that piece again. Then said Hans to the little mannikin, "What, canst thou not pick up that piece thyself? If thou wilt not take as much trouble as that for thy daily bread, thou dost not deserve to have it." Then the mannikin grew very angry, and said he was to do it. But the huntsman would not, and took my dear mannikin and gave him a thorough beating. Then the mannikin screamed terribly and cried, "Stop, stop, and let me go, and I will tell thee where the king's daughters are." When Hans heard that, he left off beating him, and the mannikin told him that he was an earth mannikin, and that there were more than 1,000 like him, and that if he would go with him, he would show him where the king's daughters were. Then he showed him a deep well, but there was no water in it. And the elf said that he knew well that the companions Hans had with him did not intend to deal honorably with him. Therefore, if he wished to deliver the king's children, he must do it alone. The two other brothers would also be very glad to recover the king's daughters, but they did not want to have any trouble or danger. Hans was therefore to take a large basket, and he must seat himself in it with his hanger and a bell and be let down. Below were 3 rooms, and in each of them was a princess with a many-headed dragon whose heads she was to comb and trim, but he must cut them off. And having said all this, the elf vanished. When it was evening, the 2 brothers came and asked how he had got on, and he said, "Pretty well so far," and that he had seen no one except at midday, when a little mannikin had come and begged for a piece of bread, that he had given some to him, but that the mannikin had let it fall and had asked him to pick it up again. But as he did not choose to do that, the elf had begun to lose his temper, and that he had done what he ought not, and had given the elf a beating, on which he had told him where the king's daughters were. Then the 2 were so angry at this that they grew green and yellow. Next morning they went to the well together, and drew lots who should first seat himself in the basket, and again the lot fell on the eldest, and he was to seat himself in it and take the bell with him. Then he said, "If I ring you, must draw me up again immediately." When he had gone down for a short distance, he rang, and they at once drew him up again. Then the second seated himself in the basket, but he did just the same as the first, and then it was the turn of the youngest, but he let himself be lowered quite to the bottom. When he had got out of the basket, he took his hanger and went and stood outside the first door, and listened, and heard the dragon snoring quite loudly. He opened the door slowly, and one of the princesses was sitting there, and had 9 dragons' heads lying upon her lap, and was combing them. Then he took his hanger and hewed at them, and the 9 fell off. The princess sprang up, threw her arms round his neck, embraced and kissed him repeatedly, and took her stomacher, which was made of pure gold, and hung it round his neck. Then he went to the second princess, who had a dragon with 5 heads to comb, and delivered her also. And to the youngest, who had a dragon with 4 heads, he went likewise. And they all rejoiced and embraced him and kissed him without stopping. Then he rang very loud, so that those above heard him, and he placed the princesses one after the other in the basket, and had them all drawn up. But when it came to his own turn, he remembered the words of the elf, who had told him that his comrades did not mean well by him. So he took a great stone which was lying there and placed it in the basket, and when it was about halfway up, his false brothers above cut the rope so that the basket with the stone fell to the ground, and they thought that he was dead, and ran away with the 3 princesses, making them promise to tell their father that it was they who had delivered them. And then they went to the king, and each demanded a princess in marriage. In the meantime, the youngest huntsman was wandering about the 3 chambers in great trouble, fully expecting to have to end his days there, when he saw hanging on the wall a flute. Then said he, "Why dost thou hang there? No one can be merry here." He looked at the dragon's heads likewise and said, "You too cannot help me now." He walked backwards and forwards for such a long time that he made the surface of the ground quite smooth. But at last other thoughts came to his mind, and he took the flute from the wall and played a few notes on it, and suddenly a number of elves appeared, and with every note that he sounded, one more came. Then he played until the room was entirely filled. They all asked what he desired, so he said he wished to get above ground back to daylight, on which they seized him by every hair that grew on his head, and thus they flew with him on to the earth again. When he was above ground, he at once went to the king's palace, just as the wedding of one princess was about to be celebrated, and he went to the room where the king and his 3 daughters were. When the princesses saw him, they fainted. Hereupon the king was angry and ordered him to be put in prison at once, because he thought he must have done some injury to the children. When the princesses came to themselves, however, they entreated the king to set him free again. The king asked why, and they said that they were not allowed to tell that, but their father said that they were to tell it to the stove. And he went out, listened at the door, and heard everything. Then he caused the 2 brothers to be hanged on the gallows, and to the 3rd he gave his youngest daughter. And on that occasion I wore a pair of glass shoes, and I struck them against a stone, and they said, "Clink," and were broken. 6 soldiers of fortune. There was once a man who was a jack of all trades. He had served in the war, and had been brave and bold, but at the end of it, he was sent about his business with 3 farthings and his discharge. "I am not going to stand this," said he. "Wait till I find the right man to help me, and the king shall give me all the treasures of his kingdom before he has done with me." Then, full of wrath, he went into the forest, and he saw one standing there by 6 trees, which he had rooted up as if they had been stalks of corn. And he said to him, "Will you be my man and come along with me?" "All right," answered he. "I must just take this bit of wood home to my father and mother." And taking one of the trees, he bound it round the other 5, and putting the faggot on his shoulder, he carried it off. Then soon coming back, he went along with his leader, who said, "2 such as we can stand against the whole world." And when they had gone on a little while, they came to a huntsman who was kneeling on one knee and taking careful aim with his rifle. "Huntsman," said the leader, "what are you aiming at?" "2 miles from here," answered he, "there sits a fly on the bough of an oak tree. I mean to put a bullet into its left eye." "Oh, come along with me," said the leader. 3 of us together can stand against the world." The huntsman was quite willing to go with him, and so they went on till they came to 7 windmills, whose sails were going round briskly, and yet there was no wind blowing from any quarter, and not a leaf stirred. "Well," said the leader, "I cannot think what ails the windmills turning without wind. And he went on with his followers about 2 miles farther, and then they came to a man sitting up in a tree, holding one nostril and blowing with the other. "Now then," said the leader, "what are you doing up there?" "2 miles from here," answered he, "there are 7 windmills. I am blowing, and they are going round." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. "4 of us together can stand against the world." So the blower got down and went with them, and after a time they came to a man standing on one leg, and the other had been taken off and was lying near him. "You seem to have got a handy way of resting yourself," said the leader to the man. "I am a runner," answered he, "and in order to keep myself from going too fast, I have taken off a leg, for when I run with both, I go faster than a bird can fly." "Oh, go with me," cried the leader. 5 of us together may well stand against the world." So he went with them all together, and it was not long before they met a man with a little hat on, and he wore it just over one ear. "Manners, manners," said the leader. "With your hat like that, you look like a jack fool." "I dare not put it straight," answered the other. "If I did, there would be such a terrible frost that the very birds would be frozen and fall dead from the sky to the ground." "Oh, come with me," said the leader. "We 6 together may well stand against the whole world." So the 6 went on until they came to a town where the king had caused it to be made known that whoever would run a race with his daughter and win it might become her husband, but that whoever lost must lose his head into the bargain. And the leader came forward and said one of his men should run for him. "Then," said the king, "his life too must be put in pledge, and if he fails, his head and yours too must fall." When this was quite settled and agreed upon, the leader called the runner and strapped his second leg onto him. "Now look out," said he, "and take care that we win." It had been agreed that the one who should bring water first from a far distant brook should be accounted winner. Now the king's daughter and the runner each took a pitcher, and they started both at the same time. But in one moment, when the king's daughter had gone but a very little way, the runner was out of sight, for his running was as if the wind rushed by. In a short time he reached the brook, filled his pitcher full of water, and turned back again. About halfway home, however, he was overcome with weariness, and setting down his pitcher, he lay down on the ground to sleep. But in order to awaken soon again by not lying too soft, he had taken a horse's skull which lay near and placed it under his head for a pillow. In the meanwhile, the king's daughter, who really was a good runner, good enough to beat an ordinary man, had reached the brook and filled her pitcher and was hastening with it back again when she saw the runner lying asleep. "The day is mine," said she with much joy, and she emptied his pitcher and hastened on. And now all had been lost, but for the huntsman, who was standing on the castle wall and with his keen eyes saw all that happened. "We must not be outdone by the king's daughter," said he, and he loaded his rifle and took so good an aim that he shot the horse's skull from under the runner's head without doing him any harm. And the runner awoke and jumped up and saw his pitcher standing empty and the king's daughter far on her way home. But not losing courage, he ran swiftly to the brook, filled it again with water, and for all that he got home 10 minutes before the king's daughter. "Look you," said he, "this is the first time I have really stretched my legs. Before it was not worth the name of running." The king was vexed, and his daughter yet more so that she should be beaten by a discharged common soldier. And they took counsel together how they might rid themselves of him and of his companions at the same time. "I have a plan," said the king. "Do not fear, but that we shall be quit of them forever." Then he went out to the men and bade them to feast and be merry and eat and drink. And he led them into a room which had a floor of iron, and the doors were iron, the windows had iron frames and bolts. In the room was a table set out with costly food. "Now go in there and make yourselves comfortable," said the king. And when they had gone in, he had the door locked and bolted. Then he called the cook and told him to make a big fire underneath the room, so that the iron floor of it should be red hot. And the cook did so, and the 6 men began to feel the room growing very warm by reason, as they thought at first of the good dinner. But as the heat grew greater and greater, and they found the doors and windows fastened, they began to think it was an evil plan of the king's to suffocate them. "He shall not succeed, however," said the man with the little hat. "I will bring on a frost that shall make the fire feel ashamed of itself and creep out of the way." So he set his hat straight on his head, and immediately there came such a frost that all the heat passed away and the food froze in the dishes. After an hour or 2 had passed, and the king thought they must have all perished in the heat, he caused the door to be opened and went himself to see how they fared. And when the door flew back there, they were all 6 quite safe and sound, and they said they were quite ready to come out, so that they might warm themselves, for the great cold of that room had caused the food to freeze in the dishes. Full of wrath, the king went to the cook and scolded him, and asked why he had not done as he was ordered. "It is hot enough there, you may see for yourself," answered the cook. And the king looked and saw an immense fire burning underneath the room of iron, and he began to think that the 6 men were not to be got rid of in that way. And he thought of a new plan by which it might be managed, so he sent for the leader and said to him, "If you will give up your right to my daughter and take gold instead, you may have as much as you like." "Certainly, my lord king," answered the man. "Let me have as much gold as my servant can carry, and I give up all claim to your daughter." And the king agreed that he should come again in a fortnight to fetch the gold. The man then called together all the tailors in the kingdom and set them to work to make a sack, and it took them a fortnight. And when it was ready, the strong man who had been found rooting up trees took it on his shoulder and went to the king. "Who is this immense fellow carrying on his shoulder a bundle of stuff as big as a house?" cried the king, terrified to think how much gold he would carry off. And a ton of gold was dragged in by 16 strong men. But he put it all into the sack with one hand, saying, "Why don't you bring some more? This hardly covers the bottom." So the king bade them fetch by degrees the whole of his treasure, and even then the sack was not half full. "Bring more!" cried the man. "These few scraps go no way at all." Then at last 7,000 wagons laden with gold, collected through the whole kingdom, were driven up, and he threw them in his sack, oxen and all. "I will not look too closely," said he, "but take what one can get so long as the sack is full." And when all was put in, there was still plenty of room. "I must make an end of this," he said. "If it is not full, it is so much the easier to tie up." And he hoisted it on his back and went off with his comrades. When the king saw all the wealth of his realm carried off by a single man, he was full of wrath, and he bade his cavalry mount and follow after the 6 men and take the sack away from the strong man. 2 regiments were soon up to them and called them to consider themselves prisoners and to deliver up the sack or be cut in pieces. "Prisoners, say you," said the man who could blow, "suppose you first have a little dance together in the air, and holding one nostril and blowing through the other." He sent the regiments flying head over heels over the hills and far away. But a sergeant who had 9 wounds and was a brave fellow begged not to be put to so much shame. And the blower let him down easily, so that he came to no harm. And he bade him go to the king and tell him that whatever regiments he liked to send more should be blown away just the same. And the king, when he got the message, said, "Let the fellows be. They have some right on their side." So the 6 comrades carried home their treasure, divided it among them, and lived contented till they died. The soul. The fishes had for a long time been discontented because no order prevailed in their kingdom. None of them turned aside for the others, but all swam to the right or the left, as they fancied, or darted between those who wanted to stay together or got into their way. And a strong one gave a weak one a blow with its tail, which drove it away or else swallowed it up without more ado. "How delightful it would be," said they, "if we had a king who enforced law and justice among us, and they met together to choose for their ruler the one who could cleave through the water most quickly and give help to the weak ones." They placed themselves in rank and file by the shore, and the pike gave the signal with his tail, on which they all started. Like an arrow, the pike darted away, and with him the herring, the gudgeon, the perch, the carp, and all the rest of them. Even the soul swam with them and hoped to reach the winning place. All at once the cry was heard, "The herring is first!" "Who is first?" screamed angrily the flat, envious soul who had been left far behind. "Who is first?" "The herring, the herring," was the answer. "The naked herring," cried the jealous creature, "the naked herring." Since that time the soul's mouth has been at one side for a punishment. The rabbit's bride. There was once a woman who lived with her daughter in a beautiful cabbage garden. And there came a rabbit and ate up all the cabbages. At last said the woman to her daughter, "Go into the garden and drive out the rabbit." "Shoo, shoo," said the maiden, "don't eat up all our cabbages, little rabbit." "Come, maiden," said the rabbit, "sit on my tail and go with me to my rabbit hutch." But the maiden would not. Another day back came the rabbit and ate away at the cabbages, until the woman said to her daughter, "Go into the garden and drive away the rabbit." "Shoo, shoo," said the maiden, "don't eat up all our cabbages, little rabbit." "Come, maiden," said the rabbit, "sit on my tail and go with me to my rabbit hutch." But the maiden would not. Again, a third time back, came the rabbit and ate away at the cabbages, until the woman said to her daughter, "Go into the garden and drive away the rabbit." "Shoo, shoo," said the maiden, "don't eat up all our cabbages, little rabbit." "Come, maiden," said the rabbit, "sit on my tail and go with me to my rabbit hutch." And then the girl seated herself on the rabbit's tail, and the rabbit took her to his hutch. "Now," said he, "set to work and cook some bran and cabbage. I am going to bid the wedding guests." And soon they were all collected. Would you like to know who they were? Well, I can only tell you what was told to me. All the hares came, and the crow who was to be the parson to marry them, and the fox for the clerk, and the altar, was under the rainbow, but the maiden was sad because she was so lonely. Get up, said the rabbit. The wedding folk are all merry. But the bride wept and said nothing, and the rabbit went away, but very soon came back again. Get up, said he. The wedding folk are waiting. But the bride said nothing, and the rabbit went away. Then she made a figure of straw and dressed it in her own clothes and gave it a red mouth and set it to watch the kettle of bran. And then she went home to her mother. Back again came the rabbit saying, Get up, and he went up and hit the straw figure on the head so that it tumbled down. And the rabbit thought that he had killed his bride, and he went away and was very sad. The Devil with the 3 golden hairs. There was once a poor woman who gave birth to a little son, and as he came into the world with a caul on it, was predicted that in his 14th year he would have the king's daughter for his wife. It happened that soon afterwards the king came into the village, and no one knew that he was the king. And when he asked the people what news there was, they answered, A child has just been born with a caul on. Whatever anyone so born undertakes turns out well. It is prophesied, too, that in his 14th year he will have the king's daughter for his wife. The king, who had a bad heart and was angry about the prophecy, went to the parents, and seeming quite friendly, said, You poor people, let me have your child, and I will take care of it. At first they refused, but when the stranger offered them a large amount of gold for it, and they thought, It is a luck child, and everything must turn out well for it, they at last consented and gave him the child. The king put it in a box and rode away with it until it came to a deep piece of water. Then he threw the box into it and thought, I have freed my daughter from her unlooked-for suitor. The box, however, did not sink, but floated like a boat, and not a drop of water made its way into it, and it floated to within 2 miles of the king's chief city, where there was a mill, and it came to a standstill at the mill dam. A miller's boy, who by good luck was standing there, noticed it and pulled it out with a hook, thinking that he had found a great treasure. But when he opened it, there lay a pretty boy inside, quite fresh and lively. He took him to the miller and his wife, and as they had no children, they were glad and said, God has given him to us. They took great care of the foundling, and he grew up in all goodness. It happened that once in a storm, the king went into the mill, and he asked the mill folk if the tall youth was their son. No, answered they, he's a foundling. 14 years ago, he floated down to the mill dam in a box, and the mill boy pulled him out of the water. Then the king knew that it was none other than the luck child which he had thrown into the water. And he said, My good people, could not the youth take a letter to the queen? I will give him 2 gold pieces as a reward. Just as the king commands, answered they, and they told the boy to hold himself in readiness. Then the king wrote a letter to the queen, wherein he said, As soon as the boy arrives with this letter, let him be killed and buried, and all must be done before I come home. The boy set out with this letter, but he lost his way, and in the evening came to a large forest. In the darkness he saw a small light. He went towards it and reached a cottage. When he went in, an old woman was sitting by the fire, quite alone. She started when she saw the boy and said, Whence do you come, and whither are you going? I come from the mill, he answered, and wish to go to the queen, to whom I am taking a letter. But as I have lost my way in the forest, I should like to stay here overnight. "You poor boy," said the woman, "you have come into a den of thieves, and when they come home, they will kill you." "Let them come," said the boy. "I am not afraid, but I am so tired that I cannot go any farther." And he stretched himself upon a bench and fell asleep. Soon afterwards the robbers came and angrily asked what strange boy was lying there. "Ah," said the old woman, "it is an innocent child who has lost himself in the forest, and out of pity I have let him come in. He has to take a letter to the queen." The robbers opened the letter and read it, and in it was written that the boy, as soon as he arrived, should be put to death. Then the hard-hearted robbers felt pity, and their leader tore up the letter and wrote another, saying that as soon as the boy came, he should be married at once to the king's daughter. Then they let him lie quietly on the bench until the next morning, and when he awoke, they gave him the letter and showed him the right way. And the queen, when she had received the letter and read it, did as was written in it, and had a splendid wedding feast prepared, and the king's daughter was married to the luck child. And as the youth was handsome and agreeable, she lived with him in joy and contentment. After some time, the king returned to his palace and saw that the prophecy was fulfilled, and the luck child married to his daughter. "How has that come to pass?" said he. "I gave quite another order in my letter." So the queen gave him the letter and said that he might see for himself what was written in it. The king read the letter and saw quite well that it had been exchanged for the other. He asked the youth what had become of the letter entrusted to him, and why he had brought another instead of it. "I know nothing about it," answered he. "It must have been changed in the night when I slept in the forest." The king said in a passion, "You shall not have everything quite so much your own way. Whosoever marries my daughter must fetch me from hell 3 golden hairs from the head of the devil. Bring me what I want, and you shall keep my daughter." In this way, the king hoped to be rid of him forever. But the luck child answered, "I will fetch the golden hairs. I am not afraid of the devil." Thereupon he took leave of them and began his journey. The road led him to a large town, where the watchman by the gates asked him what his trade was and what he knew. "I know everything," answered the luck child. "Then you can do us a favor," said the watchman, "if you will tell us why our market fountain, which once flowed with wine, has become dry and no longer gives even water." "That you shall know," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." Then he went farther and came to another town, and there also the gatekeeper asked him what was his trade and what he knew. "I know everything," answered he. "Then you can do us a favor and tell us why a tree in our town, which once bore golden apples, now does not even put forth leaves." "You shall know that," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." Then he went on and came to a wide river over which he must go. The ferryman asked him what his trade was and what he knew. "I know everything," answered he. "Then you can do me a favor," said the ferryman, "and tell me why I must always be rowing backwards and forwards and am never set free." "You shall know that," answered he. "Only wait until I come back." When he had crossed the water, he found the entrance to hell. It was black and sooty within, and the devil was not at home, but his grandmother was sitting in a large armchair. "What do you want?" said she to him, but she did not look so very wicked. "I should like to have 3 golden hairs from the devil's head," answered he, "else I cannot keep my wife." "That is a good deal to ask for," said she. "If the devil comes home and finds you, it will cost you your life. But as I pity you, I will see if I cannot help you." She changed him into an ant and said, "Creep into the folds of my dress, you will be safe there." "Yes," answered he. "So far, so good. But there are 3 things. Besides that, I want to know why a fountain which once flowed with wine has become dry and no longer gives even water. Why a tree which once bore golden apples does not even put forth leaves. And why a ferryman must always be going backwards and forwards and is never set free. Those are difficult questions," answered she, "but only be silent and quiet and pay attention to what the devil says when I pull out the 3 golden hairs." As the evening came on, the devil returned home. No sooner had he entered than he noticed that the air was not pure. "I smell man's flesh," said he. "All is not right here." Then he pried into every corner and searched, but could not find anything. His grandmother scolded him. "It has just been swept," said she, "and everything put in order, and now you are upsetting it again. You have always got man's flesh in your nose. Sit down and eat your supper." When he had eaten and drunk, he was tired and laid his head in his grandmother's lap, and before long he was fast asleep, snoring and breathing heavily. Then the old woman took hold of a golden hair, pulled it out, and laid it down near her. "Oh," cried the devil, "what are you doing?" "I have had a bad dream," answered the grandmother, "so I seized hold of your hair." "What did you dream then?" said the devil. "I dreamed that a fountain in a marketplace, from which wine once flowed, was dried up, and not even water would flow out of it. What is the cause of it? Oh ho, if they did but know it," answered the devil. "There is a toad sitting under a stone in the well. If they killed it, the wine would flow again." He went to sleep again and snored until the windows shook. Then she pulled the second hair out. "Ha, what are you doing?" cried the devil angrily. "Do not take it ill," said she. "I did it in a dream." "What have you dreamt this time?" asked he. "I dreamt that in a certain kingdom there stood an apple tree which had once borne golden apples, but now would not even bear leaves. What think you was the reason?" "Oh, if they did but know," answered the devil. "A mouse is gnawing at the root. If they killed this, they would have golden apples again, but if it gnaws much longer, the tree will wither altogether. But leave me alone with your dreams. If you disturb me in my sleep again, you will get a box on the ear." The grandmother spoke gently to him until he fell asleep again and snored. Then she took hold of the 3rd golden hair and pulled it out. The devil jumped up, roared out, and would have treated her ill if she had not quieted him once more, and said, "Who can help bad dreams?" "What was the dream then?" asked he, and was quite curious. "I dreamt of a ferryman who complained that he must always ferry from one side to the other and was never released. What is the cause of it?" "Ah, the fool," answered the devil. "When anyone comes and wants to go across, he must put the oar in his hand, and the other man will have to ferry, and he will be free." As the grandmother had plucked out the 3 golden hairs and the 3 questions were answered, she let the old serpent alone, and he slept until daybreak. When the devil had gone out again, the old woman took the ant out of the folds of her dress and gave the luck child his human shape again. "There are the 3 golden hairs for you," said she. "What the devil said to your 3 questions I suppose you heard." "Yes," answered he, "I heard and will take care to remember. "You have what you want," said she, "and now you can go your way." He thanked the old woman for helping him in his need and left hell well content that everything had turned out so fortunately. When he came to the ferryman, he was expected to give the promised answer. "Ferry me across first," said the luck child, "and then I will tell you how you can be set free." And when he reached the opposite shore, he gave him the devil's advice. "Next time anyone comes who wants to be ferried over, just put the oar in his hand." He went on and came to the town wherein stood the unfruitful tree, and there too the watchman wanted an answer. So he told him what he had heard from the devil. "Kill the mouse which is gnawing at its root, and it will again bear golden apples." Then the watchman thanked him and gave him as a reward 2 asses laden with gold, which followed him. At last he came to the town whose well was dry. He told the watchman what the devil had said: "A toad is in the well beneath a stone. You must find it and kill it, and the well will again give wine in plenty." The watchman thanked him and also gave him 2 asses laden with gold. At last the luck child got home to his wife, who was heartily glad to see him again and to hear how well he had prospered in everything. To the king he took what he had asked for the devil's 3 golden hairs. And when the king saw the 4 asses laden with gold, he was quite content and said, "Now all the conditions are fulfilled, and you can keep my daughter. But tell me, dear son-in-law, where did all that gold come from? This is tremendous wealth." "I was rowed across a river," answered he, "and got it there. It lies on the shore instead of sand." "Can I too fetch some of it?" said the king, and he was quite eager about it. "As much as you like," answered he. "There is a ferryman on the river. Let him ferry you over, and you can fill your sacks on the other side." The greedy king set out in all haste, and when he came to the river, he beckoned to the ferryman to put him across. The ferryman came and bade him get in, and when they got to the other shore, he put the oar in his hand and sprang out. But from this time forth the king had to ferry as a punishment for his sins. Perhaps he is ferrying still. If he is, it is because no one has taken the oar from him. The Goose Girl. There lived once an old queen whose husband had been dead many years. She had a beautiful daughter who was promised in marriage to a king's son living a great way off. When the time appointed for the wedding drew near, and the old queen had to send her daughter into the foreign land, she got together many costly things, furniture and cups and jewels and adornments, both of gold and silver, everything proper for the dowry of a royal princess, for she loved her daughter dearly. She gave her also a waiting gentlewoman to attend her and to give her into the bridegroom's hands. And they were each to have a horse for the journey, and the princess's horse was named Falada, and he could speak. When the time for parting came, the old queen took her daughter to her chamber, and with a little knife she cut her own finger so that it bled, and she held beneath it a white napkin, and on it fell 3 drops of blood, and she gave it to her daughter, bidding her take care of it, for it would be needful to her on the way. Then they took leave of each other, and the princess put the napkin in her bosom, got on her horse, and set out to go to the bridegroom. After she had ridden an hour, she began to feel very thirsty, and she said to the waiting woman, "Get down and fill my cup that you are carrying with water from the brook. I have great desire to drink." "Get down yourself," said the waiting woman, "and if you are thirsty, stoop down and drink. I will not be your slave." And as her thirst was so great, the princess had to get down and to stoop and drink of the water of the brook, and could not have her gold cup to serve her. "Oh dear," said the poor princess, and the 3 drops of blood heard her and said, "If your mother knew of this, it would break her heart." But the princess answered nothing, and quietly mounted her horse again. So they rode on some miles farther. The day was warm, the sun shone hot, and the princess grew thirsty once more. And when they came to a watercourse, she called again to the waiting woman and said, "Get down and give me to drink out of my golden cup." For she had forgotten all that had gone before. But the waiting woman spoke still more scornfully and said, "If you want a drink, you may get it yourself. I am not going to be your slave." So as her thirst was so great, the princess had to get off her horse and to stoop toward the running water to drink. And as she stooped, she wept and said, "Oh dear." And the 3 drops of blood heard her and answered, "If your mother knew of this, it would break her heart." And as she drank and stooped over the napkin on which were the 3 drops of blood, fell out of her bosom and floated down the stream, and in her distress she never noticed it. Not so the waiting woman, who rejoiced because she should have power over the bride, who now that she had lost the 3 drops of blood had become weak and unable to defend herself. And when she was going to mount her horse again, the waiting woman cried, "Falada belongs to me, and this jade to you." And the princess had to give way and let it be as she said. Then the waiting woman ordered the princess with many hard words to take off her rich clothing and to put on her plain garments. And then she made her swear to say nothing of the matter when they came to the royal court, threatening to take her life if she refused. And all the while Falada noticed and remembered. The waiting woman then mounting Falada and the princess, the sorry jade they journeyed on till they reached the royal castle. There was great joy at their coming, and the king's son hastened to meet them and lifted the waiting woman from her horse, thinking she was his bride. And then he led her up the stairs, while the real princess had to remain below. But the old king, who was looking out of the window, saw her standing in the yard and noticed how delicate and gentle and beautiful she was. And then he went down and asked the seeming bride who it was that she had brought with her, and that was now standing in the courtyard. "Oh," answered the bride, "I only brought her with me for company. Give the maid something to do, that she may not be forever standing idle." But the old king had no work to give her, until he bethought him of a boy he had who took care of the geese, and that she might help him. And so the real princess was sent to keep geese with the goose boy who was called Conrad. Soon after, the false bride said to the prince, "Dearest husband, I pray thee do me a pleasure." "With all my heart," answered he. Then said she, "Send for the knacker, that he may carry off the horse I came here upon and make away with him. He was very troublesome to me on the journey." For she was afraid that the horse might tell how she had behaved to the princess. And when the order had been given that Falada should die, it came to the princess's ears, and she came to the knacker's man secretly and promised him a piece of gold if he would do her a service. There was in the town a great dark gateway through which she had to pass morning and evening with her geese, and she asked the man to take Falada's head and to nail it on the gate, that she might always see it as she passed by. And the man promised, and he took Falada's head and nailed it fast in the dark gateway. Early next morning, as she and Conrad drove their geese through the gate, she said as she went by, "O Falada, dost thou hang there?" And the head answered, "Princess, dost thou so meanly fare? But if thy mother knew thy pain, her heart would surely break in twain." But she went on through the town, driving her geese to the field. And when they came into the meadows, she sat down and undid her hair, which was all of gold. And when Conrad saw how it glistened, he wanted to pull out a few hairs for himself. And she said, "O wind, blow Conrad's hat away, make him run after as it flies, while I with my gold hair will play and twist it up in seemly wise." Then there came a wind strong enough to blow Conrad's hat far away over the fields, and he had to run after it. And by the time he came back, she had put up her hair with combs and pins, and he could not get at any to pull it out. And he was sulky and would not speak to her. So they looked after the geese until the evening came, and then they went home. The next morning, as they passed under the dark gateway, the princess said, "O Falada, dost thou hang there?" And Falada answered, "Princess, dost thou so meanly fare? But if thy mother knew thy pain, her heart would surely break in twain." And when they reached the fields, she sat down and began to comb out her hair. Then Conrad came up and wanted to seize upon some of it, and she cried, "O wind, blow Conrad's hat away, make him run after as it flies, while I with my gold hair will play and do it up in seemly wise." Then the wind came and blew Conrad's hat very far away, so that he had to run after it. And when he came back again, her hair was put up again, so that he could pull none of it out. And they tended the geese until the evening. And after they had got home, Conrad went to the old king and said, "I will tend the geese no longer with that girl." "Why not?" asked the old king. "Because she vexes me the whole day long," answered Conrad. Then the old king ordered him to tell how it was. "Every morning," said Conrad, "as we pass under the dark gateway with the geese, there is an old horse's head hanging on the wall, and she says to it, 'O Falada, dost thou hang there?' And the head answers, 'Princess, dost thou so meanly fare? But if thy mother knew thy pain, her heart would surely break in twain.'" And besides this, Conrad related all that happened in the fields and how he was obliged to run after his hat. The old king told him to go to drive the geese next morning as usual, and he himself went behind the gate and listened how the maiden spoke to Falada. And then he followed them into the fields and hid himself behind a bush. And he watched the goose boy and the goose girl tend the geese, and after a while he saw the girl make her hair all loose, and how it gleamed and shone. Soon she said, "O wind, blow Conrad's hat away, and make him follow as it flies, while I with my gold hair will play and bind it up in seemly wise." Then there came a gust of wind, and away went Conrad's hat, and he after it, while the maiden combed and bound up her hair. And the old king saw all that went on. At last he went unnoticed away, and when the goose girl came back in the evening, he sent for her and asked the reason of her doing all this. "That I dare not tell you," she answered, "nor can I tell any man of my woe, for when I was in danger of my life, I swore an oath not to reveal it." And he pressed her sore and left her no peace, but he could get nothing out of her. At last he said, "If you will not tell it me, tell it to the iron oven," and went away. Then she crept into the iron oven and began to weep and to lament, and at last she opened her heart and said, "Here I sit forsaken of all the world, and I am a king's daughter, and a wicked waiting woman forced me to give up my royal garments and my place at the bridegroom's side, and I am made a goose girl and have to do mean service. And if my mother knew, it would break her heart. Now, the old king was standing outside by the oven door listening, and he heard all she said, and he called to her and told her to come out of the oven. And he caused royal clothing to be put upon her, and it was a marvel to see how beautiful she was. The old king then called his son and proved to him that he had the wrong bride, for she was really only a waiting woman, and that the true bride was here at hand, she who had been the Goose Girl. The prince was glad at heart when he saw her beauty and gentleness, and a great feast was made ready, and all the court people and good friends were bidden to it. The bridegroom sat in the midst with the princess on one side and the waiting woman on the other. And the false bride did not know the true one, because she was dazzled with her glittering braveries. When all the company had eaten and drunk and were merry, the old king gave the waiting woman a question to answer as to what such an one deserved who had deceived her masters in such and such a manner, telling the whole story and ending by asking, "Now what doom does such an one deserve?" "No better than this," answered the false bride, "that she be put naked into a cask studded inside with sharp nails, and be dragged along in it by 2 white horses from street to street until she be dead." "Thou hast spoken thy own doom," said the old king. "As thou hast said, so shall it be done." And when the sentence was fulfilled, the prince married the true bride, and ever after they ruled over their kingdom in peace and blessedness. The Dog and the Sparrow. A shepherd's dog had a master who took no care of him, but often let him suffer the greatest hunger. At last he could bear it no longer, so he took to his heels, and off he ran in a very sad and sorrowful mood. On the road he met a sparrow that said to him, "Why are you so sad, my friend?" "Because," said the dog, "I am very, very hungry and have nothing to eat." "If that be all," answered the sparrow, "come with me into the next town, and I will soon find you plenty of food." So on they went together into the town, and as they passed by a butcher's shop, the sparrow said to the dog, "Stand there a little while till I peck you down a piece of meat." So the sparrow perched upon the shelf, and having first looked carefully about her to see if anyone was watching her, she pecked and scratched at a steak that lay upon the edge of the shelf, till at last down it fell. Then the dog snapped it up and scrambled away with it into a corner, where he soon ate it all up. "Well," said the sparrow, "you shall have some more if you will, so come with me to the next shop, and I will peck you down another steak." When the dog had eaten this too, the sparrow said to him, "Well, my good friend, have you had enough now?" "I have had plenty of meat," answered he, "but I should like to have a piece of bread to eat after it." "Come with me, then," said the sparrow, "and you shall soon have that too." So she took him to a baker's shop and pecked at 2 rolls that lay in the window till they fell down, and as the dog still wished for more, she took him to another shop and pecked down some more for him. When that was eaten, the sparrow asked him whether he had had enough now. "Yes," said he, "and now let us take a walk a little way out of the town." So they both went out upon the high road, but as the weather was warm, they had not gone far before the dog said, "I am very much tired. I should like to take a nap." "Very well," answered the sparrow, "do so, and in the meantime I will perch upon that bush." So the dog stretched himself out on the road and fell fast asleep. Whilst he slept there came by a carter with a cart drawn by 3 horses, and loaded with 2 casks of wine. The sparrow, seeing that the carter did not turn out of the way but would go on in the track in which the dog lay so as to drive over him, called out, "Stop, stop, Mr. Carter, or it shall be the worse for you." But the carter, grumbling to himself, "You make it the worse for me indeed. What can you do?" cracked his whip and drove his cart over the poor dog so that the wheels crushed him to death. "There!" cried the sparrow. "Thou cruel villain, thou hast killed my friend the dog. Now mind what I say. This deed of thine shall cost thee all thou art worth." "Do your worst, and welcome," said the brute. "What harm can you do me?" and passed on. But the sparrow crept under the tilt of the cart and pecked at the bung of one of the casks till she loosened it, and then all the wine ran out without the carter seeing it. At last he looked round and saw that the cart was dripping and the cask quite empty. "What an unlucky wretch I am," cried he. "Not wretch enough yet," said the sparrow, as she alighted upon the head of one of the horses and pecked at him till he reared up and kicked. When the carter saw this, he drew out his hatchet and aimed a blow at the sparrow, meaning to kill her. But she flew away, and the blow fell upon the poor horse's head with such force that he fell down dead. "Unlucky wretch that I am," cried he. "Not wretch enough yet," said the sparrow. And as the carter went on with the other 2 horses, she again crept under the tilt of the cart and pecked out the bung of the second cask, so that all the wine ran out. When the carter saw this, he again cried out, "Miserable wretch that I am!" But the sparrow answered, "Not wretch enough yet," and perched on the head of the second horse and pecked at him too. The carter ran up and struck at her again with his hatchet, but away she flew, and the blow fell upon the second horse and killed him on the spot. "Unlucky wretch that I am," said he. "Not wretch enough yet," said the sparrow, and perching upon the third horse, she began to peck him too. The carter was mad with fury, and without looking about him or caring what he was about, struck again at the sparrow, but killed his third horse as he'd done the other 2. "Alas, miserable wretch that I am!" cried he. "Not wretch enough yet," answered the sparrow as she flew away. "Now will I plague and punish thee at thy own house." The carter was forced at last to leave his cart behind him and to go home overflowing with rage and vexation. "Alas," said he to his wife, "what ill luck has befallen me? My wine is all spilt, and my horses all 3 dead." "Alas, husband," replied she, "and a wicked bird has come into the house, and has brought with her all the birds in the world, I am sure, and they have fallen upon our corn in the loft, and are eating it up at such a rate." Away ran the husband upstairs, and saw thousands of birds sitting upon the floor eating up his corn, with the sparrow in the midst of them. "Unlucky wretch that I am," cried the carter, for he saw that the corn was almost all gone. "Not wretch enough yet," said the sparrow. "Thy cruelty shall cost thee thy life yet." And away she flew. The carter, seeing that he had thus lost all that he had, went down into his kitchen, and was still not sorry for what he had done, but sat himself angrily and sulkily in the chimney corner. But the sparrow sat on the outside of the window and cried, "Carter, thy cruelty shall cost thee thy life." With that he jumped up in a rage, seized his hatchet, and threw it at the sparrow. But it missed her, and only broke the window. The sparrow now hopped in, perched upon the window seat, and cried, "Carter, it shall cost thee thy life." Then he became mad and blind with rage, and struck the window seat with such force that he cleft it in 2. And as the sparrow flew from place to place, the carter and his wife were so furious that they broke all their furniture, glasses, chairs, benches, the table, and at last the walls without touching the bird at all. In the end, however, they caught her, and the wife said, "Shall I kill her at once?" "No," cried he, "that is letting her off too easily. She shall die a much more cruel death. I will eat her." But the sparrow began to flutter about and stretch out her neck and cried, "Carter, it shall cost thee thy life yet." With that he could wait no longer. So he gave his wife the hatchet and cried, "Wife, strike at the bird and kill her in my hand." And the wife struck, but she missed her aim and hit her husband on the head so that he fell down dead, and the sparrow flew quietly home to her nest.